This old penny could be hiding a value nobody around you would ever expect. Most people see a worn-out wheat penny and think it's just an old 1-cent coin. Nothing special. Nothing important. But collectors know a different story.
Welcome back to Change Your Life. Today we're uncovering the hidden world of rare Lincoln Wheat Pennies, coins that have become some of the most searched and collected pennies in American history.
In this video, we're revealing 3 wheat pennies that continue to surprise collectors. 1957 Lincoln Wheat Penny, no mint mark, Philadelphia. 1953 Lincoln Wheat Penny, D, Denver. 1946 Lincoln Wheat Penny, D, Denver.
These classic coins feature the iconic wheat ears reverse design, a symbol recognized by coin collectors all over the world. Even though they may appear dirty, faded, scratched, or heavily circulated, some versions hide details that can make them incredibly desirable. Rare mint errors, unusual strikes, and hard-to-find high-grade examples have pushed certain wheat pennies to values worth far more than 1 cent.
In some cases, collectors have paid hundreds, even thousands of dollars for the right coin. And the craziest part? Many valuable pennies still blend in with ordinary pocket change in old coin jars. So before you overlook another old penny, check it carefully, because one tiny detail could change everything. Now let's uncover coin number 1. Stop. Before you spend another old penny, look at the date carefully. Because one forgotten Lincoln Wheat Penny from 1957 is still hiding inside jars, drawers, piggy banks, and old collections across America while most people never notice it. The 1957 Lincoln Wheat Penny. No mint mark. Philadelphia Mint. A coin that spent decades moving silently through American life, and somehow survived long enough to become one of the most recognizable wheat pennies collectors still search for today. Now at first glance, it looks ordinary. Small. Brown. Dirty. Heavily worn from circulation. The kind of coin most people would toss onto a counter without a second thought. But old wheat pennies have a strange effect on collectors. Because the second somebody sees those wheat ears on the reverse, everything changes. Suddenly the coin does not feel modern anymore. It feels historical. Almost frozen in time. Now flip the penny over slowly. Those 2 wheat stalks stretching along the sides of the reverse became one of the most iconic designs in United States coin history. Simple. Clean. Classic. For decades Americans carried these pennies everywhere. Inside wallets. Inside lunch money pockets. Inside old soda machines. And during the 1950s, these coins moved through America constantly while the country itself was changing rapidly. That matters. Because coins absorb history quietly while nobody notices. And the 1957 wheat penny witnessed one of the most fascinating periods in modern American life. Television was exploding across the country. Old highways were filling with classic American cars. Families were moving into new suburbs. Restaurants, diners, movie theaters, and gas stations filled daily with coins exactly like this one. Which means many 1957 pennies lived hard lives in circulation for decades afterward. That is why heavily circulated survivors still attract attention today. Because survival itself becomes part of the story. Now here is something important. This 1957 penny carries no mint mark beneath the date. That means it came from Philadelphia, the oldest and most historic United States mint facility. Millions were produced there during 1957. But time slowly erased huge numbers forever. Pennies disappeared into circulation. They were lost under furniture. Thrown away accidentally. Damaged beyond recognition. And because copper coins circulated constantly during that era, many surviving examples became extremely worn over time. The wheat lines faded. Lincoln's portrait flattened. The surfaces darkened after generations of handling. That is why collectors still study surviving examples carefully today. Every visible detail matters now. Especially on old wheat pennies. Now look closely at Abraham Lincoln's portrait. Can you still see stronger hair detail? Can you still see sharper cheek lines? Collectors pay attention to all of that immediately.
Then they flip the coin over and study the wheat ears.
Strong visible wheat lines always create more excitement. Because once details disappear completely, they never return. That challenge keeps people searching wheat pennies endlessly even now. Every old jar creates another possibility. Every forgotten coin pile creates another mystery. And the 1957 wheat penny became one of those dates collectors always recognize instantly.
Now imagine somebody opening an old kitchen drawer that had not been touched for years.
Inside are rusty keys, receipts, buttons, old photographs, and hidden quietly in the corner, a dark 1957 wheat penny sitting unnoticed for decades. That moment is exactly why coin collecting becomes addictive. Because coins feel connected to real lives, real people, real history. Especially wheat pennies. Modern coins rarely create emotional connection the same way. But wheat pennies do immediately. The design itself already feels nostalgic before you even hold it. And once the surfaces become worn from generations of circulation, the coin almost feels more authentic, more alive.
Now think about how many people may have touched this exact penny before you.
A child buying candy during the 1960s. A worker paying for coffee during the 1970s. A cashier counting change during the 1980s. The coin survived every decade afterward while the world changed around it.
That invisible journey becomes part of the fascination.
And collectors understand that deeply. That is why old wheat pennies continue pulling people into coin collecting generation after generation. Not because every coin secretly makes somebody a billionaire overnight, but because these coins carry atmosphere modern money lost long ago. And the 1957 wheat penny captures that feeling perfectly. Especially heavily circulated examples that clearly survived decades of everyday American life. Now here is the part most people never realize. The 1957 wheat penny also arrived near the end of an era. Because only a short time later, the wheat reverse design disappeared forever from United States pennies. That means every surviving wheat penny became part of a finished chapter in American coin history. A design people could never receive in normal pocket change again. And once something disappears permanently, collectors start chasing the survivors harder every year.
That is exactly what happened with wheat pennies. Especially older Philadelphia examples still carrying readable dates and stronger remaining detail.
So tonight, before you throw another old penny aside, stop for 1 second. Check the date carefully. 1957.
Look for the missing mint mark beneath the year. And flip the coin over to those classic wheat ears. Because sometimes the dirtiest and most forgotten pennies carry the strongest stories of all.
Stop. Do not spend that old wheat penny until you check the date carefully.
Because one forgotten coin from 1953 is still quietly hiding inside old jars, dusty drawers, family collections, and pocket change across America while most people never notice it.
The 1953 Lincoln Wheat Penny. Denver Mint.
A small copper coin connected to an America that feels almost lost today.
And the strange thing is,
the more worn these pennies become,
the more history they seem to carry.
Now look closely at the front of the coin. Abraham Lincoln's portrait has probably been touched thousands of times over decades of circulation.
The surface may look dark, scratched, dirty,
softened by years moving through diners, gas stations, grocery stores, old vending machines, and cash registers across the United States.
But collectors love coins exactly like this.
Because heavily circulated wheat pennies feel real.
They feel alive.
Every scratch tells part of the journey.
And the 1953 penny survived through one of the busiest periods in American history. Now look beneath the date. That tiny D mint mark changes the entire story. Because it connects this coin directly to Denver, one of the most important United States mint facilities during the 1950s.
Millions of wheat pennies rolled out of Denver that year.
but time slowly erased huge numbers forever. Pennies disappeared into couch cushions, old parking lots, schoolyards, coin machines. Some became so worn the dates vanished completely. That is why collectors still search carefully for readable examples today, especially stronger survivors with better remaining detail. Now flip the penny over slowly. Those famous wheat ears stretching along both sides of the reverse instantly separate this coin from modern pennies. The design feels classic the moment you see it. Simple, clean, historic. For generations, Americans carried wheat pennies everywhere without imagining people decades later would still study them closely. But collectors understand something most people miss. Once a coin design disappears forever, the surviving pieces slowly become artifacts instead of ordinary money. And by the late 1950s, the wheat penny era was already approaching its final years. That matters, because collectors love coins connected to closing chapters in American history. Now here is where things become interesting. The 1953 wheat penny circulated heavily across America for decades, which means finding examples with stronger visible details became harder over time. Collectors study Lincoln's hair carefully. The cheek lines, the wheat stalks on the reverse, the sharpness of the lettering. Every surviving detail matters now because so many examples became flattened from years of circulation. That challenge keeps people searching endlessly through old penny jars even today, because every old coin creates another possibility, another mystery waiting quietly to be discovered. Now imagine somebody opening an old cigar box hidden away inside a closet for 50 years. Inside are faded receipts, old keys, family photographs, and sitting quietly at the bottom, a dark 1953 wheat penny nobody noticed for decades. That moment is what makes coin collecting addictive, because coins carry atmosphere, especially wheat pennies. Modern coins rarely feel emotional, but old wheat pennies immediately create connection. They remind people of another America. Old diners, drive-in theaters, classic cars, pocket change counted by hand instead of digitally on screens. And the 1953 penny carries that feeling strongly. Now think about how many hands may have touched this coin before yours. A factory worker during the 1950s. A child buying candy during the 1960s. A cashier counting change during the 1970s. The coin quietly survived every decade afterward while the world around it transformed completely. That invisible history becomes part of its fascination. And collectors feel that deeply. That is why wheat pennies continue pulling people into coin collecting generation after generation. Not because every coin secretly creates overnight billionaires, but because these coins feel connected to real American history in a way modern money rarely does anymore. And the 1953 Lincoln Wheat Penny captures that feeling perfectly. A small copper survivor from another era, still hiding quietly in collections and change jars across America today. So tonight, before you throw another old penny aside without looking twice, pause for 1 second. Check the date carefully. 1953. Look beneath the year for that tiny D mint mark. And flip the coin over to those classic wheat ears. Because sometimes the smallest and dirtiest coins carry the strongest stories of all. Stop. Before you spend another old wheat penny, look closely at the date. Because one forgotten penny from 1946 is still quietly surviving inside old jars, family collections, and dusty drawers across America while most people never even notice it. The 1946 Lincoln Wheat Penny. Denver Mint. A coin connected to one of the most emotional moments in American history. And somehow, after decades of circulation, many of these pennies are still hiding in plain sight. Dark, dirty, worn nearly smooth, looking ordinary to almost everyone except collectors. But collectors understand something different the second they see this coin. They see history. Real history. Because 1946 was not just another year. America was stepping out of World War II. Families were rebuilding normal life again. Soldiers were returning home. Factories were changing.
The country itself felt completely different than it had only a few years earlier.
And during all of that change, these pennies moved through America every single day. That matters.
Because coins absorb the atmosphere of their time quietly while nobody pays attention. And the 1946 wheat penny carries that feeling strongly.
Now look carefully at Abraham Lincoln's portrait on the front. The surface may appear scratched and faded after generations of circulation.
The hair detail might look soft. The cheek lines worn flat from decades moving through stores, diners, train stations, gas stations, and old cash registers across the country. But that wear becomes part of the story itself.
Collectors actually love heavily circulated wheat pennies because they feel authentic. Alive.
Like they truly traveled through history instead of sitting untouched in a collection forever.
Now look beneath the date. That tiny D mint mark changes everything.
Because it connects this penny directly to Denver,
one of the busiest United States mint facilities during the 1940s. Millions of pennies rolled out of Denver in 1946. But time slowly erased huge numbers forever. Some disappeared into circulation never to return. Others became too damaged to survive. Many lost their visible dates completely after decades of use.
That is why collectors still search carefully for readable surviving examples today. Especially examples carrying stronger visible detail.
Now flip the coin over slowly.
Those classic wheat ears stretching along both sides instantly separate this penny from modern coins.
The design feels historic immediately. Simple. Strong. Recognizable across generations.
For decades, Americans carried wheat pennies everywhere without imagining people nearly a century later would still study them closely under magnifying glasses.
But once the wheat reverse design disappeared forever years later, everything changed. Suddenly, old wheat pennies became pieces of another era. And collectors started chasing surviving examples harder every year afterward. That is exactly what happened to coins like the 1946 D. Now here is where things become fascinating.
The 1946 wheat penny survived one of the busiest circulation periods in American coin history.
Pennies worked hard during the post-war years,
constantly moving through restaurants, grocery stores, movie theaters, arcades, and city streets across America. Which means finding examples today with stronger visible wheat lines, clearer lettering, and better portrait detail became much harder over time.
Collectors study every detail carefully now. Lincoln's hair, the jawline, the wheat stalks, the rim edges.
Every surviving feature matters because time erased so many others permanently.
That challenge keeps collectors searching endlessly through old penny jars and inherited collections even today. Because every forgotten coin creates another possibility.
Another hidden survivor waiting quietly to be discovered.
Now imagine somebody opening an old wooden drawer untouched for decades. Inside are faded photographs, old letters, rusty keys, and sitting quietly underneath everything else, a dark 1946 wheat penny waiting silently for someone to notice it again. That moment is what makes coin collecting emotional for so many people. Because coins feel connected to real human lives.
And wheat pennies create that feeling instantly.
Especially older dates from the 1940s.
They remind people of another America completely different from today's world. An America of train whistles, old diners, handwritten receipts, and pocket change counted by hand. And the 1946 wheat penny carries all of that atmosphere inside one small copper coin. Now think about how many people may have touched this exact penny before you.
A soldier returning home after the war. A child buying candy during the 1950s. A cashier counting change during the 1960s. The coin survived every decade afterward while the world transformed around it completely.
That invisible journey becomes part of the fascination collectors feel today.
And that is why wheat pennies still capture attention generation after generation. Not because every coin secretly creates overnight millionaires, but because these small coins survived real American history. And the 1946 Lincoln Wheat Penny remains one of those quiet survivors still hiding in plain sight today. So tonight, before you throw another old penny aside, pause for 1 second. Check the date carefully. 1946. Look beneath the year for that tiny D mint mark. And flip the coin over to those famous wheat ears. Because sometimes the oldest and dirtiest pennies carry the strongest stories of all.